Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. Join us on Twitter right now and be part of our program. Just go to our account, our handle at Indy This Week. We start with the race for governor. Two Democrats now out of the race, Glenda Ritz and Karen Talion, who entered her campaign Monday after the AFL-CIO endorsed John Gregg. The focus now turns to potential candidate Tom Sugar, the former chief of staff for Evan Bayh, who is seriously considering a campaign. He's now with our State House reporter, Katie Hines.
Let's talk, Tom, about why you're considering a run for governor and getting back into politics.
You know, it's a great question, Katie, because I really didn't see this coming. Some people, I suppose, run for office, but I feel like this office has sort of run toward me. A year ago, I established a new not-for-profit called Lead or Leave. I encourage your viewers to go to leadorleave.org, O-R-G. I started that with the interest in trying to solve our broken politics. Our government is not structured now to resolve the big, difficult challenges facing us. Nancy and I have two boys, 19 and 12, and I feel like we're leaving an awful lot of problems for them. We've kicked so many cans down the road, and that's bad enough. But what's worse is just the very structure of our government does not allow or reward thoughtful debate. And so I created an organization to show Indiana there's a better way. We can redraw these maps, make sure that people's voices are heard, and give them a government as good as they are. And in the process of making that point, making those presentations around the state, people have been asking me to consider to run for governor. They feel it's a compelling choice and a compelling message. And so here I am in an unexpected place, quite frankly. I had given up on politics when I left it as Evan Bayh's chief of staff in 2009. I was fed up with just all the politics being played all the time in Washington. If you ask Evan, he'd say much the same. And so I went out and created a new not-for-profit to work on college completion issues and help more kids graduate from college. And so I thought I was done with it. You know, it did not work. I wanted to find a new way forward. But then this sort of lingering feeling that we're leaving too many problems left unsolved brought me back in.
How do you think the current system of redistricting affects the functions of the State House? What gets done, what doesn't?
The RFRA debate was a perfect example of that. And we're all embarrassed about how all that unfolded. We became a national laughingstock during the RFRA debate. And regardless of how you feel about the issue, the thing that should make Hoosiers most upset is that our government does not function. In the case of RFRA, the Chamber of Commerce, our leading corporations, our leading job creators warned the legislature, don't go down this path. It's unnecessary. The protections already exist. It will do damage to our economy. And what did they do? They tuned them all out. Tuned them all out. Katie, because they were worried about one thing, and one thing only. When you come from a very, very gerrymandered district, when the system is rigged to ensure your re-election, the only thing you're thinking about are who votes in your primary election. And sadly, most Hoosiers have completely checked out of primaries. That means that people from the most ideological extremes of both parties participate. And so the ideological extremes of the Republican Party in this case were saying, this is what we're going to do to you in your primary, and you know we can beat you, so you better listen to us. And so they did. Thankfully, our corporate leaders stood up and said, time out. This is a bad idea, and we got things back on track and got a fix in place. That's what I'm talking about. When our elected officials just worry about a small number of people who vote in the primary elections, we get bizarre, out of balance, out of touch kinds of legislation. And we can fix that, though. I have a plan that will fix it, and we've got to fight for it.
Talk to us. If you get into the race right now, you'll face, if you were to do it today, Democrat John Gregg, who has close to $2 million in contributions in the bank and also has received support from some big labor unions here in the last few days. Do you have the support? Do you have the resources to get in and to run this race?
I will say this, that my first and foremost concern, because before I'm anything else, Katie, I'm a husband and father. And so because I helped create this not-for-profit where I work now, it's a nonpartisan institution. I cannot run for governor and continue to work where I am. So I have to find a new job that will allow me that flexibility. And I'm making good progress on that. When it comes to whether I have the resources to be heard, I'm confident that I will. I'm sort of a build it and they will come kind of guy. And I think if we give people a compelling reason to be involved, they'll get involved. So I'm sort of unusual as politicians go, although I hate to call myself a politician. But for the purpose of this argument, let's say that I am. I'm not one of those guys who thinks that if you lose an election, your life ends. You know, I lost an election in 1992, and you know what happened the next day? The sun came up, and new opportunities presented themselves. I'm not concerned about any of that. I don't care who's up, who's down, who's in, who's out. I don't care. I know what we have to be talking about. I know the reform that is essential to make our government work, and I will use everything in my power to make sure people can hear it. If I can figure out a way to take care of my family, I'm in.
You talked to your longtime boss, Evan Bayh, about this.
This is a very sensitive time for Evan, and I know all Hoosiers join me in saying prayers for Susan's rapid recovery from her surgery. It's a slow process. He and I talked about it briefly, but not in detail, because when we last spoke, it was actually a couple days before Susan was going to have surgery. But you know, I haven't worked for Evan for 7 years, you know, and my service to him and my service to the state is something I'm very, very proud of. I think my service with Evan in the governor's office and in the Senate qualifies me to be your governor, no question. But I'm also my own man. I'm my own man. And I'm coming back into politics, possibly, because I have my own vision for the future of Indiana. And that's what Hoosiers deserve. They need campaigns about our future. Who are we? As we're about to celebrate our 200th anniversary, our bicentennial. If there was ever a moment for reflection on who we are and where we're going and whether we have a government that works for us to give us the future we want, it's right now. I don't see that choice being presented. It needs to be presented. People deserve elections as good as that, and gubernatorial elections should be about big, transformative ideas, not small politics. I have no intention of running a campaign, if I get in, that's poll-driven. You know, essentially how it works, Katie, is you hire a pollster, you say, okay, what do they want to hear? And the pollster says, well, this is what they want to hear. And then you say, okay, well, how do they want to hear it? And the pollster says, well, this is how you need to repeat it back to them. Rinse, repeat, etc., right? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. If I get in this thing, I will not hire a pollster. I know how this all works, okay? I've been there for 24 years. I served in public office in very, very high positions. I'm not coming back to nibble at the edges. I'm not coming back to sound like the other guy or just run a campaign because I'm not the other guy. I would come back with a very, very precise idea in mind.
When do you plan to make a decision?
I think that time is not my friend in this case. I do think it's important to get in sooner than later. I would hope that around Labor Day or no later than that, I'd be able to make a final decision. You know, it's interesting. People, because I'm gaining some notoriety, and thank you for having me on the program, people are stopping me on the street now. And they're grabbing me by the arms. They're saying, oh, I hope you go. I hope you go. Because we need a fresh face. We need new ideas. We need someone to talk about the future, not the past. They're ready for a fresh start. And so I think we all need to think long and hard about the best way to present that fresh start to people. And I do think that means fresh ideas.
Tom, we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Katie. Enjoyed it. Thank you.
Katie, thank you so much. You heard Tom Sugar talk about the group Lead or Leave. You can find more about that organization and their work to change the way that redistricting is done in Indiana by going to our website, theindychannel.com. You'll find a link in the Hot Button section.